Welcome, brave souls, to Fear File Chronicles, your one-way ticket to spine-chilling stories and terrifying tales. Tonight, we'll be diving into the darkest corners of the human mind with the story, My Will Be Done, penned by the twisted mind of Locked 334. Together, we'll explore the unexplained and face our deepest fears. But before we begin, if you enjoy trembling in terror, be sure to hit that like button. Share this video with your fellow fear fanatics and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click the bell notification so you never miss an eerie episode. Your support truly means the world to us, so feel free to leave a comment below to join the Fear File Chronicles community. Now, without further ado, let's unravel the mysteries of the unknown together as we delve into tonight's fear-inducing story, My Will Be Done. Dim the lights and prepare yourself for a chilling journey into the Fear File Chronicles. Recovery from alcoholism is not easy. The biggest step you take is admitting the problem and taking the road towards solving it. I had long since given up hope in quitting of my own free will and found myself turning to God for answers. I sat in the bottom of my shower, the water long since turning cold, but still pelting my aching body. I cried out for some sort of relief for the torment, and a voice responded within my mind. Let my will be done. The words continued to play as if on repeat as I prepared for my workday. I shoveled ibuprofen down my throat to ease the pounding in my head and exited my house. The voice was a distraction from my duties, so I tried to tune it out. I knew it was important, but I had always put my job before so many things, even my well-being. I always told myself that if I could make it through a few hours in the office, I could numb my pain again with alcohol in the evening. I knew it was not an answer to my problem, but it was all I could manage anymore. My headache did not ease. It actually became even more difficult to ignore. The pressure surged behind my left ear, and a strange tingling coursed down my left arm and leg. A panic set in, which only served to make it worse. I was sure I was going to have a heart attack or a stroke at any moment. I asked a coworker to take me to the emergency room, to which he obliged. God was done waiting for me to listen. The doctor on call for the emergency room listened as I admitted my fault. She looked at me with pity, which made me feel even worse. I felt pathetic, crying there in that tiny hospital gown. I was still holding on to the idea that I should have been strong enough to beat this on my own. A nurse came in shortly after with a small plastic cup with a tiny white pill inside. She told me it was Xanax and that it would help with my anxiety and my withdrawal symptoms. I knew what Xanax was. I had seen many people abuse it as a teenager. Just the implications of ingesting it were frightening. Would I be trading one addiction for another? They assured me that it would help, and I relented. The pill went down quickly, and in time it eased my pain. My wife had watched through tears, wondering if I would survive this ordeal, but the doctor assured her that if I were willing that I could live through this. I bowed my head to pray for the first time in a long time. I begged God for his help and asked to be saved from this torment my life had become. I gave in to his will and asked to be shown the way. The following days would be a testament to that. I set aside the alcohol and put forth an effort to be more than the man I had been before. I tried to put God first and my family second. I wanted to leave it all behind me. By week's end, I made it a point to find my place in a pew at church. I needed to change my routine, get back to a place of peace, and do whatever it took to keep the bottle out of my hand. The only trouble was that I was still relying on that pill. That tiny white object silenced the screaming in my head and slowed the quake of my body. It was a relief and a curse, all in one. The following week was when the ringing began. It started as a low, almost inaudible hum in my right ear. The kind of noise that is simply annoying, but not unbearable. I crudely shoved my pinky finger in the canal and wiggled it about, as if trying to remove some small instrument that was creating the sound. It passed as quickly as it came. The instance was so easily dismissed, but much like the trumpet that sounds for judgment, it was but a sign of things to come. Unfortunately, I did not understand the warning, and the sound slowly increased in volume over the following week. My habit had been to listen to talk radio on my commute to work. At random intervals, the broadcast would be interrupted by static as if receiving a bad signal. I tried adjusting the station, but found that it seemed to happen no matter what I was listening to. This was odd, but not alarming. The kind of thing you mention jokingly to friends or family. I would forget about it even happening for days on end before the incident would repeat itself, and I would be reminded of how strange it seemed. As the weeks passed, the static became more frequent, and when words bled through the blurred signal, I decided it was best to just turn off the radio completely. It was the same words as before. Let my will be done. The Xanax I had been prescribed were not intended for prolonged use. The doctor at the emergency room wanted to help relieve my withdrawal symptoms while I was coming down from my dependency on alcohol. I knew I could not keep taking them. So after a few weeks of relying on them to quiet my mind, I decided to forgo my nightly dose. I was awoken at 1 in the morning by the constant whispering of voices. Imagine lying in bed with people surrounding you, carrying on multiple conversations at the very same moment in quiet, low murmurs. Their words would be so tangled that you would be unable to make sense of any of them, but also so distracted by their consistency that it would make it impossible to sleep. That was how I spent my first night without medicine. When my alarm sounded the next morning, I was still awake, eyes bloodshot and staring at the glowing red numbers in front of me. I forced my way from the sheets and toward the bathroom. I relieved my bladder and splashed water on my face in an attempt to shake my exhaustion. I hobbled like a zombie toward the kitchen and leaned against the doorframe for a moment. My wife had already brewed a pot of coffee, and I eagerly helped myself to a large cup. I took a large gulp, but as soon as it hit my tongue, I forced it back out across the counter. The dark brown liquid made an odd Rorschach upon the bright white laminate countertop.
"What the hell, John?"
my wife yelled, grabbing a towel from the dish strainer. I stared at the image the beverage created and whispered, "It tastes horrible." My voice was disconnected and monotone. I was more concerned with the roundness of the coffee and the specks of white within. They seemed to reveal a face. The eyes stared back as my wife's rant continued behind me. Her words were muffled, though, my thoughts consumed by the face in front of me. The ringing started again and grew so loud that I could barely hear anything else. I shook my head to try to eliminate the annoyance, but it did not work. The sound came to an abrupt halt as my wife finished her sentence. I turned to look at her, confusion resting on my eyebrows. "I'm sorry. What did you say?" My words devoid of emotion. She pushed past me and wiped away my distraction.
"I swear you never listen to a word I say."
"Sorry, Catherine," I murmured before looking down in my cup. She took it from me and took a sip. It apparently tasted fine to her, so I tried another taste. The bitterness that had filled my mouth before was gone. It was replaced with the same brew I had become accustomed to. I tried to shake it off, along with the odd spill pattern, but I was almost positive I could not function at work with so little sleep. I called my boss to let him know the situation. Though he was frustrated, he tried to be understanding of the trials I was facing. He told me to rest up and to be back in the morning. I returned to my room and closed all the blinds. I wanted to shut out all the light, but some still seemed to filter through. My body curled under the sheets and I buried my head beneath my pillow. With the light smothered and my body hidden below the sheets, I was finally able to find rest. My eyes fluttered open to see that the house was dark. My clock read 5:30, which meant I had slept most of the day. I eased my way out of bed and into the living room. The house was eerily quiet. I called out for my wife, but received no answer. I glanced out the kitchen window to see that our car was not in the driveway. As I turned around, I noticed a message scrawled across the dry erase board across from me. "Gone to store. Be back soon." I gave a slight smile as I opened the fridge. My fingers released the handle. The door hung wide as I stared in awe. Every inch of the refrigerator was filled with bottles of beer. My wife had promised to remove every ounce of alcohol from the house when I decided to get sober. I could only wonder why she would fill it with my temptation. I slammed the door shut, my stomach churning at the thought of what lay beyond the door. My hands rested against the fridge, and my eyes stared into the milky reflection within the white of the door. The plastic beneath my hands felt as though it were vibrating. The door begged to be opened, and the circus of voices rose up within my mind. The noise grew louder and louder as the seconds ticked by. I wanted to cover my ears, but I knew if I released my hold on the fridge door, it would open. The voices became deafening as the doors began to fight violently to be free. I screamed out for all of it to stop, but I only received one response: let my will be done. With my will broken, I ripped the door open and removed one of the cans of alcohol. Within seconds, the amber liquid was down my throat, and my sobriety dashed upon the rocks. But the voices had stopped. A smile slid across my lips as if I had won some contest. The cold beverage, however, began to turn within my stomach. It rolled and rose. The rumbling eruption found its way up my throat and out through my lips. Falling back against the cabinets, I released my victory upon the floor. The liquid continued to flow from me like a fountain. First, it was golden, like the beer, but grew darker as the spectacle continued. My eyes grew wide and I was unable to make sense of what was happening. Beer eventually gave way to blood, and my kitchen floor was coated in a bubbly layer of my insides. I was sure that this was how I would die. That was when my body rose with a jolt from my bed, covered in sweat. The nightmare had been so real that I could still taste bile and blood on my tongue. Smoke mixed with the night air as I puffed on my nicotine relief. It was pushing 3 o'clock in the morning, and all the world was still amid the chaos that ruled my mind. The thought of checking the refrigerator crossed my mind, but I shook it off. I did not want to know if there was alcohol within it. I finished one cigarette and lit another. The simple idea of closing my eyes brought the fear of another nightmare. The silence was broken by a distant and muffled sound. In my paranoia, I turned toward the noise, convincing myself it was a voice. I leaned back inside the door and looked toward our bedroom. There was nothing and no one, but I was certain I heard it. I stood listening for the sound intently and was only broken from my focus by the embers of my cigarette burning my fingers. I winced in pain, tossing the butt to the ground. Instinctively, I placed my injured finger between my lips and stepped back inside. I convinced myself to go to bed before I hurt myself any further. The low hum of the noise became a constant reminder of my insanity. I had started taking earphones to work so I could use music to drown out the noise. This ritual seemed to be the only way to keep my mind focused on the information that was supposed to be processed at my computer. I squinted as words blurred together and constantly rubbed at my eyes. Even the smallest of chores had become difficult, and I was unsure of how much more I could take. By lunch, I was rolling the bottle of pills in my hand. The voice echoed in my head again. Let my will be done. The small white pill was swallowed in seconds, and within the hour, I was calm once again. As the humming faded and my senses became my own, I rushed through my workload in an attempt to make it back home. My intention was to lock myself away until this torment ended. I had enough sick days to keep myself secluded for a couple of weeks at least. I was sure this insanity would have to end by then, but I was wrong. The dreams continued, becoming more vivid as time passed. In each one, I would be tempted to drink, and in each I was not strong enough to resist. With each open container, a burst of dark laughter erupted, as if a demon watched my pain with enjoyment. I would wake up with the taste of liquor on my tongue. Catherine had become worried about my mental state and asked me to seek help. My pride kept me from doing this. I could not let people see me this way. The pills were not working as well, so I took more. The world became a cloudy mess that left me confused of when I was awake or when I was dreaming. I was exhausted despite knowing I had slept the night before. My last day of sick leave was approaching, and I knew I had to have a handle on this before returning to work. But my illness seemed to be getting worse instead of better. I contemplated this as I stared myself in the mirror of our bathroom, splashing water across my eyes as if trying to wash my nightmares away. That faded and distant voice called out again. I slowly turned to look from the doorway to the bed where Catherine lay sleeping and knew it could not have been her. The voice repeated, low and far away, making it impossible to understand. My feet shuffled in the dark, following the sound out of my bedroom and down the hall. I glanced in rooms as I passed and inched toward the opening of the living room. My house seemed far darker than it had ever been, and I traced my fingers along the walls at my sides for guidance. The feeling of a presence manifested before I noticed it, but once my eyes adjusted, there appeared to be a figure standing before me within the darkness. I could make out no features other than its small size compared to myself. The realization that Catherine could not have passed by me without me noticing hit me hard, and I began rubbing at my eyes. Sure, I was mistaken. The figure remained, and now I could hear it breathing. Its breath was quick, deep, and deliberate, like someone hyperventilating. There are few times in my life I have been so afraid that I was paralyzed. This particular instance was one of them. Whatever stood before me in that hallway remained motionless and silent. It watched me tremble in its presence. And again, the words found their way into my head. Let my will be done. The words jolted me awake, but I had been so sure that I was not dreaming. Everything felt surreal. My hands pulled open my bedside drawer and groped for the pill bottle. I knew from the lack of sound that it was empty before I even opened it. In my panic, I opened it and turned it over anyway, desperate to quiet my mind at any cost. Soon, I found myself standing at the refrigerator with my hand upon the handle, hesitating, questioning what I was about to do. The cacophony in my brain made it impossible for me to make a logical decision. But soon enough, I jerked the door open. The darkness of my kitchen was bathed in the dim light of my fridge. From that light, the disappointment etched on my face was clearly visible. Catherine had discarded all of my alcohol as I had asked her to. The door slammed shut and I was back down the hall in seconds. I grabbed my car keys, wallet, and shoved my feet into my shoes. The only solution to my torment was within my reach, and I was determined to get it at all costs. The tires squealed as I pulled out of my driveway, heading to a 24-hour liquor store a few miles away. The clerks there knew me fairly well. When I entered, they greeted me by name, but I ignored them. I was on a mission, my eyes intent on a half-gallon bottle of Tennessee whiskey. One hand gripped tight around the neck of the bottle, while the other struggled to remove the cap. It resisted, and I groaned in frustration, reaching for another bottle. Somewhere inside my head, I heard laughter. The clerk was approaching me quickly. The young man could see the panic in my eyes and wanted to calm me down, but he had no idea of the power that had hold of me at that moment. I do not remember striking the man, but when he pulled himself up from the floor, his intent was to call the police. I tried opening another bottle, but it too would not yield. This struggle became tedious, so I simply struck the glass container against the shelf from which I'd removed it. Tiny shards scattered the floor with specks of liquor splashing out and landing beside them on the tiles. I quickly tilted back the container and began drowning myself in the bitter medicine, stopping only long enough to catch my breath. The bottle was empty in mere minutes. Sirens echoed in the distance as I dropped to my knees. My vision blurred, and I felt the numbing sensation take over. My body slumped against the cold tile as a figure loomed overhead. Let my will be done. I write this during my time of reflection. The doctors here believe it could help with my recovery. My wife finds it unbearable to visit me here, and those who knew me before cannot comprehend what I have become. But I still have visits. A small statured figure, shrouded in shadows, comes to me at night. It tells me that I must leave this place, that it has a plan for me. They will not let me drink here. They call it my disease. I cannot discern reality anymore. They fear medicating me, thinking it will only delay the healing process. All I know for sure is the voices have returned, and my body trembles. My muscles ache, and my ears keep ringing. I am not sure how much longer I can hold out. Its will must be done. Well, my friends, we've reached the end of tonight's chilling tale. My Will Be Done by the talented Locked 334. I hope you've enjoyed our descent into darkness and that you'll carry a piece of the Fear File Chronicles with you as you drift into uneasy dreams. If our story left you shivering and shaking, don't forget to like this video, share it with others who crave a good scare, and subscribe to the Fear File Chronicles for more haunting horrors. Remember to hit the bell notification so you're always among the first to know when a new nightmare awaits. As always, we appreciate your support and would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Sharing your fears and frights with us truly means a lot, so don't be shy to engage with our sinister community. Until next time, remember to embrace the darkness, for it is within the shadows that our most terrifying stories are born. Good night, and stay scared.